So let me give a quick overview here. This group actually has active relationships with a number of different aliens. We have Tacta, the healing alien, who a lot of you have encountered during our sessions, our healing sessions. She comes in with a team of healing beings and to our healing sessions, and many people have perceived her and her colleagues working in our sessions. Some of the people in this group here have been experienced healing effects during those sessions, and in the future I'm going to release a video about that because some of the stories are quite profound. We also have established some of the other aliens we've established communications with and relationships with are Arcturians. And a number of people have seen these Arcturians. We've reached out to them in some of our remote viewing sessions. And when we do this, we often have people seeing and encountering the same beings, hearing the same things that the beings say. And we actually had an interesting remote viewing just about a week ago. Some people started to see Arcturians, and some people with the Arcturians started to see an unusual being that I haven't seen before. And I saw this very unusual looking alien, and I asked it during the session, could you turn your head to the side so that we can see your profile view? And when that happened, apparently a few people in the meeting saw exactly the same alien, exactly the same profile view. Now, I didn't say anything because when I saw this, I thought, that doesn't look like any alien I've seen before. It's just kind of like a saucer shape, its head. And I kind of discounted it. Well, I thought, well, maybe that's just my imagination. But then a couple of hours later, Johnny Darko sends me this picture, and it's exactly the same alien that I saw. And then 2 or 3 other people, when I posted this online, started to say, hey, yeah, that's exactly the being that I saw. And so this sort of thing happens a lot at our events where people perceive exactly the same being, regardless of how unusual it is. People hear the same words. I'm going to ask now Stacey to explain her relationship with the Arcturians. And yeah, I will just pass over to Stacey. Thank you, Stacey.
Hi. So I guess I'll start by talking a little bit about how I met the Octurians. During a remote viewing session, I was kind of pulled to this one, what I saw, a ship, you're meditating and you're trying to kind of contact any ships or any intelligent beings out there at all. And I felt pulled to this one ship. I went inside and there were 3 beings there. And at first I didn't know what they were, or, I'm not actually even familiar with that many different alien, names or anything when I was doing this. So I'd heard like Palladians and Arcturians, but, I didn't have any idea what they were. And so it was a very powerful meeting for me. And every meeting since has also been. I was very, very pulled to one in particular that I felt like I had a deep connection with somehow. I don't know if you want to call reincarnation or alternate. I have no idea, but I felt very connected to this one being. And the other 2 were also there. I felt just a huge amount of love. Like, it was so powerful. I was embarrassed because I was in a group and I couldn't stop crying. So I just tried to hide that I was crying because it was such a beautiful experience.
Was that one at the event that I was leading?
Yeah, I think the first one I went to with you. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yep. So over in Monument. And then after that, I kept doing remote viewings, and sometimes I would be like, okay, I met these really cool beings. Now I would like to go to other places. And I kept being pulled to the same ship and to the same beings. So I started getting able to see them more clearly. At first, I was like kind of gray. I see some pink in one, I see some purple. And over time, I was able to see them more fully. Sometimes I still can't tell exactly what I'm seeing on their heads, but we talk and they really give a lot of deep insight. Sometimes I almost feel like it's more of like a download than words, but it seems to be a psychic connection. Pretty easy for me to get there now. And I don't know if you want me to talk about anything that they've told me. I mean, they've told me they really want to connect with this group. Me and Rupert, I've connected with them together because they love what we're doing and they really, really want to be a part of this. So I don't know.
Are you able to let us know if they've talked to you about anything connected to the environment?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Also, before I go, I want to just say how I learned their names was I was actually driving and I was kind of thinking about them in my head and felt some kind of connection. And I was rolling around words and trying to figure it out. And then I asked them if they could give me letters. And I started seeing letters one at a time in my head. And that's how I got the Rheumioid, the Helmiad, and the Sashki. I mean, it was like boom, boom, boom. And I was like, okay, Rheumioid, and so it was very interesting. And then environment, yeah, they're quite concerned about the environment here. What they've really said is something you may have heard in the documentary, like we're losing so much variety, and that's really dangerous for us. We've got to go on a different trajectory. And they kind of talked about how there's so much belief that there's something wrong with the planet Earth and we're doing things wrong and it's not a good deal. And a lot of people believe that, but we need more action. We need, there needs to shift from a belief that, yeah, this is bad to doing more. And they tie that into love. They say, love is not something you give, and when you give it away, you lose something. Love is something you can grow. And so doing acts of kindness, and treating our planet well, all of that, growing love will prompt that action forward, if that makes sense. We have to love humanity and our planet, and we have to do that ourselves. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for all of that. And I want to thank Stacey for all of the correspondence that she has facilitated with me and these three Arcturians, Rheumioid, Sashki, and Helmiad. And as Stacey has said, we've remote viewed together on a few occasions, and we've had open communication, conversations with them, and we invited them to be here with us today, and they accepted the invitation. Now, let me explain for those of you that don't know how some of the alien contact works. Many of these beings are not anywhere near the planet Earth. They can be off hundreds of thousands of light years away, and physically getting here takes too much energy, too much time, too much effort. But they have the same ability we have, and that is to remote view or astrally project. And their ability to do that is so much better than ours. And so they are able to project to us, and they do so. They are doing that with us today. Now, what I would like to do is to just for about 2 minutes. Usually when we remote view aliens, it's the whole thing. But today I'd like us to, we're going to do a very, very quick meditation. We're going to do a very quick opening up of our psychic senses and remote viewing. And we're going to let them know that we are here, and that they are welcome to be with us, and that they can, if they're able to, let their presence be known to us. They're certainly very welcome to be here listening to everything that's going on.
Can I add one thing, Rupert?
Yeah.
That I wanted to say? I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's important that everybody knows these three Arcturians. I'm sure there's more out there, but these three in particular, like, it is what they do is try to connect with other species, and they really do want to connect with humanity. They're on a ship. I believe that I've seen it fly by a couple of times, but I mean, they're still very far away. Who knows where they really are, but they do want to connect with us. They do want to be available to us. And that is kind of what they do, I guess, almost like a job. So
Yeah. Thank you. And we've seen that with Arcturians before. They choose an occupation, a mission, and like healing or communicating or reaching out, and that's what they do. I want to also point out that I have independently contacted these three Arcturians with Laura Zoller when I was in Vegas. I was all excited about the connection I was making through Stacy. And a lot of you know Laura Zoller from our videos on YouTube. She's very tuned into aliens, and we were able to communicate. She was able to communicate with them there, and we had like a conversation for about an hour, talking to them. So there's lots of verification from different people that these beings are there and communicating with us. So I'm going to ask everybody to make sure they're not going to be disturbed by phones and things. So maybe people can mute phones if they're not muted. Just make sure that no alarms are going to go off and disturb us during this short meditation. And we're going to do this meditation. We're going to connect with these beings. And then we will go through, we will talk about what do they want us to know about climate change. So I'm going to ask everybody to close your eyes and just relax your bodies. I'm going to take a few deep breaths in and out. And every time we breathe out, just imagine your body relaxing more and more. Breathe out all your tensions, all your stresses, all your worries. Picture your hands relaxing. All the muscles throughout your arms relaxing. All the muscles in your back and your torso, freeing up their tensions and relaxing. We feel all of our leg muscles relax. Feel your feet relax. Feel all the tensions draining out of your neck. And we store a lot of tension in our faces. Just let all of that go. Feel your face muscles relax, your eye muscles. Our whole bodies are now very relaxed. And see in your mind your entire body, and just see any remaining tensions drifting away. And now let yourself see superimposed within and through your biological body, your spirit or your astral body, the same shape as your biological body, but a luminous spiritual body. And it extends outwards from three-dimensional space into extra-dimensional spaces. And see and feel within the center of both our biological body and our spiritual body. Feel our hearts. Our hearts are where we feel a lot of emotion, where we experience emotion being based. Allow in your heart feelings of love and friendship and peace to start building. And as these feelings of love and peace for all beings in the universe increase, picture your heart starting to glow brightly with loving spiritual energy. And imagine your heart becoming so bright that it ignites like a little star of love in the universe, radiating love and friendship throughout space and time. Let your love shine on all of the people in this group, in this Zoom session, regardless of where you are in the world. Direct this loving feeling and friendship towards all the members of this group in all the different countries around the world. Feel connected to everybody here. And now let your love radiate outwards towards all alien or advanced life elsewhere in the universe. We reach out in friendship and love and a desire to establish meaningful, constructive relationships with you. Radiate your star of love brightly. And now in everybody's minds, I want you to imagine moving through time and space to wherever Helmiad, Sashki, and Rimitoid are. Reach out to them. Find yourself with them. Radiate love to them. Smile at these three beautiful beings and thank them for being with us today. And I talk now to those three beings through all of us. And I say, Helmiad, Rimitoid, and Sashki, we invite you to be among us today, spiritually or physically, if you're capable of being with us. Please come down to us, be with us on the planet Earth. Let us see you. Let us feel your presence. We know that this subject of climate change, of environmental degradation, is an important one on our planet, and we know it's one that you're interested in. And we invite you to come and be with us throughout this entire session. And if possible, to give us any insight that you might have. If possible, help to guide us with any messages, either verbal or visual, or just fill us with your love. We invite you to be with us today. Now I'd like all the humans in this group to imagine yourselves in the presence of these beings. Radiate love to them, smile at them, and we all in our minds say thank you for being here, and you're welcome. You're so welcome to be here with us. And we're going to let them stay with us, and we're going to leave open our spiritual connection to them. But in our minds, we're going to firmly establish our spirits back inside our biological bodies, in the rooms in which our biological bodies are in. We can feel our feet as we wiggle our toes. We can feel our fingers as we wiggle our fingers. And as we breathe, we can feel our whole body moving. We can feel the weight of our body pushing down on the floor or the chair or the bed, wherever we are. And we know that we're safe and secure inside our bodies. And now we open up our eyes, our biological eyes, and we return to our Zoom meeting. And I'm curious to know if anybody can sense their presence, if anybody knows if they're around or with us. Stacy, were you feeling anything there?
Yeah, definitely.
They're here with us?
Yes, they, I felt their presence actually like right in here in the corner of my room, but they said that they wanted to, they can kind of be with all of us in a weird way, but they are excited and hope that you will keep yourself open so they may help if they need to guide this conversation a little.
Fabulous. So we're all going to try and remain open. I'm curious, Nicole, did you sense their presence at all?
Yes, I did. I actually got a couple messages. One of them was I could see them all around a map, and it was like a map of the world, and they were showing me the rainforest specifically and the water. And then right at the very end, I got a message that said, healed people do not hurt the world. So we need to heal each other in order to heal the world.
Wow, okay. I like that message. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mary, I just noticed that your hand is up. Do you have something you would like to contribute? Sorry, I don't know if that hand was raised earlier on in the session or not. Mary Backer. Okay. Is anybody else aware of the presence of these beings? Did anybody else see anything?
Just very limited in case anybody else saw it, just for validation. It was very limited, but one of them had a string of beads coming around their front of their torso and then back. I'm not sure what the beads were made of, if they really were beads or some other thing on them. I also saw some hexagram symbols on them and some white, like squared off design of panels. I think that those were on the walls, and I saw these three guys sitting down in three chairs, but there were a lot of chairs around them. I think maybe the circle, that was it. It was very limited.
Fantastic. I've sat in one of those chairs. That's cool. Thank you, Robert, very much. Robert's a very experienced and capable remote viewer, so I thank him for his input. Becky, did you raise your hand there?
Yeah, collected, and I felt some pressure changes. Didn't really hear any messages, but just feel very collected and focused.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ms. Taylor.
I was a bit like Becky. I really focused in on a good feeling of love. And for maybe 2 seconds, I felt kind of not a light, but I felt a shimmering of energy in my heart center. That was the only thing I experienced. It made me feel, I mean, now look, I just feel so wonderful and ready to absorb what information they can give us to help us do what we need to do.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Mariana, would you mind verbalizing what you said you saw? Mariana is also very capable, spiritually, very gifted.
Yeah. Again, just into the start of it, my eyes rolled up again uncontrollably and vibrated. And then it just relaxed. And then as we're going through it, I got a flash of this rose-like bloom flower. It was white, and it was just like, I mean, it was the most clear image I've ever seen. I mean, there was no stem or anything. It was just the bloom, but it was just like, boom, there, flash, as if I saw it on TV or a computer or something like that. And the first one was the most solid, shall we say. And then it flashed a couple of times before we finished again. It was just kind of like, wow. But that's the only thing I got.
Did you see what color the flower was?
It was white.
A white flower in full bloom. That's awesome. Thank you very much for that. After these sessions, I always get people sending me emails saying, yeah, I saw this and I saw that. But I'm not going to continue with this anymore. We're going to stay cognizant of the presence of these beings and stay open to them in case we receive anything else from them. And I'm going to tell you what they want us to do, because this group is being supported actively by a number of different alien beings because they like what we're doing. And this is a message I've received over and over and over again, hundreds of times from various different sources. They like what we're doing. And one of the keys to wisdom, one of the keys to making moral choices, to making wise choices, is to start off with appropriate knowledge. And that is really what they want me to do today, is give you knowledge about the situation we're in. So I'm a scientist. I understand how to give people knowledge. And so I am going to tell people today about the planet and the state that the planet is in, and the state of global warming and climate change, because in our everyday lives, it's easy to just sort of push those things aside for a number of different reasons. It's easy to push these things aside. And that's part of the problem. We need to know what the problem is, so that first of all, we can stop contributing to it if we are. And secondly, if we can do anything to, without imposing on people, to teach other people about this subject, then that would be awesome. And thirdly, that we can plan for what to do in the face of this crisis, in the face of global warming, because it's not going away. No matter what we do, it's not going away, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's too big a problem. We're like mice trying to move a mountain. And we need to plan for our future. And that's another thing that the aliens are helping us with. So I'm going to now teach. I'm going to give a lecture. I'm going to give a lecture on global warming and climate change. And it might seem a little bit depressing because a lot of this information is not so great, but I'm going to stick to the facts. And that's what these Arcturians and many other aliens have been trying to tell us about for decades, for many decades. Many people who have had experiences with aliens over decades have reported that these aliens have been trying to get them to wake up to the problems with the environment that we're causing. And those problems are getting more intense all the time. And so if this gets boring for people, I do understand if people want to head off. What I am going to do is post in the chat 4 documentary movies that if you have to leave at any time, if you find my voice annoying or whatever the problem is, if you need to head off, but you like the idea of looking into this subject a little bit more, then these 4 documentaries: An Inconvenient Truth, A Life on This Planet, What the Health, and The Game Changers. Watch them in that order. Those are 4 documentaries around this subject that is going to continue this lesson for people outside of this Zoom meeting. Now, after I've gone through this lesson, which may take a while, but after I've gone through it, then we're going to talk about it all. I'm going to tell you about all of the plans that we're planning for our future. Because we have a very clear plan in place, and it's a big one. It's a powerful, significant one, and the aliens are helping us with this. And then at the very end, if people want to hang around, we can chat to each other and get to know each other. Okay, somebody else saw that Stacy, you saw the flower?
No, but when she said about the flower, I got the same interpretation. She just posted in the chat, and I'm sorry, I'll stop chatting.
That's okay. What was your interpretation?
Just that she had posted the language of flowers, part of the meaning of a white rose is a new beginning, a fresh start. I kind of got it as there was a kind of deeper connection formed with us, and that I can see the image of the flower kind of representing that with our group.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Right, a little bit of Earth history. Just take a couple of minutes talking about the history of the Earth. The Earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago. I've given classes about that. For the first billion years, the atmosphere was largely carbon dioxide. That acted like a thick blanket around the planet, trapping in heat and causing severe global warming, the greenhouse effect. The surface temperatures were about 230 degrees Celsius. Now, I'm not very good with Fahrenheit because I'm a scientist, but your rooms are probably about 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. So if you imagine multiplying that by 100, the Earth was a hot 500 Fahrenheit. Thank you, Robert. And about 3.5 billion years ago, some of the earliest primitive species, such as cyanobacteria, became photosynthetic. That was an important point in Earth's history because they started taking in carbon dioxide using light to make their own food. And why is this important? Because they started taking in carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and releasing oxygen into the atmosphere. But oxygen is a very reactive substance, and it wasn't for another billion years until after this oxygen finished reacting with all the elements in the Earth, for example, turning iron into iron oxide and so forth. So it wasn't until about 2.5 billion years ago that the oxygen that was released from these organisms started to build up in the atmosphere. Since then, photosynthetic organisms such as plants have been continually working to remove the carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen into the air. About 350 million years ago, tropical swamps were very abundant in plants. And those plants, when they died, were sunk to the bottom of the swamps, sediments put on top of them, they were trapped underground. They started removing huge amounts of carbon and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, pushing it down into the ground, turning it into coal over time. Ocean plankton similarly was trapped down at the bottom of the ocean and pushed down and taking all of the, because all of the carbon that's in their bodies was taken from the carbon dioxide in the air and pushed down and down and down. And that's eventually took a lot of carbon out of the air, carbon dioxide out of the air, eventually turning it into oil, changing our atmosphere into oxygen-rich atmosphere. About 200 million years ago, the first mammals evolved from amphibians. About 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, or humans, evolved. About 250 years ago, the Industrial Revolution began. Humans started digging up and pumping up coal and oil in large quantities. And they started putting back into the atmosphere all of the carbon dioxide that had been taken out of the atmosphere by natural processes over the previous 500 million years. That's what we're doing. About 100 years ago, humans accelerated their burning of coal and oil and fossil fuels so dramatically that it actually started to noticeably change the Earth's climate. We are quite literally changing the climate back to how it was hundreds of millions of years ago. And we're not slowing down. We're already have the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere of about 15 to 20 million years ago, and we're just keeping on going. So that's a little bit of Earth history. So let's talk about carbon dioxide in a little bit more detail. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. That means that it acts like the glass in a greenhouse, letting sunlight into the atmosphere, but stopping heat from escaping. In other words, atmospheric carbon dioxide acts like a blanket around our planet, trapping in heat and keeping the Earth warm. A bit like what's going on Venus. Those of you that were in my space science class, Venus is not the closest planet to the sun, but it's the hottest. And the reason it's the hottest is because it has a very dense atmosphere that traps in the heat, heats it up on the inside to very high temperatures. That's what we're starting to do to this planet. There is a very strong correlation between the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere and the planet's temperature. And some of you will have seen this before, but I'm going to share with you an image here of, this is over thousands of years ago. This goes back 800,000 years on the left-hand side. And we have the orange is the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air. The blue is the temperature. And you can see that the temperature and the carbon dioxide concentration match up fairly well. When there were higher levels of carbon dioxide for a number of different reasons in the atmosphere, the temperature went up, and vice versa. Now look at the present day here. Look at what happens to the level of carbon dioxide. It shoots up way, 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 way more than what it has been anywhere on this graph for 800,000 years. Look at that. Now, if we take that, this is where we are today. If we take that to where the temperature is likely to get to based on this graph, we're looking at close to 10 degrees Celsius increase. That's, what is that in Fahrenheit? That's like, what, 20 degrees Fahrenheit increase? This is ridiculous. There's also a very strong sea level concentration. Sea level. I'm being a bit distracted because it's funny, I've talked about this many times, but I'm actually getting emotional here because this is so terrible what we're doing. You look at how the sea level corresponds to carbon dioxide concentration and global temperature. This is over 400,000 years. So sea level corresponds to the temperature of the planet, because when it's warmer, you get less ice. It melts into water. And what is going to happen to sea level now? Again, look at this. This is the CO2 concentration we're doing now. What is this going to do? We're plowing into a flood of biblical proportions. From the start of the Industrial Revolution, carbon dioxide levels have increased in the atmosphere from 270 parts per million to about 440. They're presently higher than they've been in 3 million years. There's something called the Keeling curve. And there's a documentary which also I encourage people to watch called I Am Greta. I Am Greta, that's about Greta Tunberg, who was a very perceptive young Swedish girl who just looked at the science of this, understood the science of it. And in her documentary, she says quite early on, she's talked to politicians about this subject. They don't even know what the Keeling curve is. And this is a very important curve, because this Keeling curve, produced by a guy called Keeling, shows over time. I'm going to make this a bit smaller so you can see it properly. Okay, it's not, there you go. This shows how over the last 100 years, the concentration of CO2 has been going up. And in the atmosphere, this is concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. And it's a very well understood graph. And the pandemic put a slight kink in it, but it's already back to normal. It's already, it didn't actually put a kink in the Keeling curve, but it put a kink in our emissions for a small period of time, but now they're back to how they were before and more. This is the evidence that this is what's happening now, the Keeling curve. And corresponding to that is the temperature change that we have noticed happening here since 1880. The temperature has been following this pattern straight up. Now, the temperature increase at the moment from pre-industrial revolution levels is a little over 1 degree C. It's something like 1.1, 1.2 degrees C. That's an increase of about 2 degrees Fahrenheit since the start of the Industrial Revolution. This is something that is not new knowledge. This is something that has been known for a long, long time. And scientists and politicians, some politicians have been trying to do something about this, but the majority of politicians just not interested, because what's the solution to this? To change. Everybody wants change. Nobody is willing to change. And they know that. And they make promises about the future, but they don't do anything about the present. So this is not changing. Okay, look at this temperature change graphic with the year in the middle. And the further out that these lines go over the course of a year, the hotter the temperatures are getting. We can see that over time, the temperature of the planet is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And it's starting to, this only goes to 2018, but it's accelerating outwards. These are the temperature changes the planet has experienced in the last 50 years. Now, even though the average temperature increase is about 1.1 degrees C, the temperature increase is not uniform. You can see that most places have increased. There are some places that have got a little bit colder, but most places have increased. The Arctic is suffering. Look at that. That's an increase between 2 and 4 degrees Celsius. And of course, that's really important because that is, sorry, I'm just letting other people into this meeting. That's causing the ice caps to melt. That's causing sea levels to rise. In the US, in case anybody's interested, these are the temperature increases that have occurred. Can't see when that is. Oh, since the 1900s, and everywhere apart from 1 or 2 small places down here in the southeast have got hotter. And temperatures are continuing to rise rapidly. Now, I've been on CE5 tours through Nevada. I've lived in California. I've toured through Arizona and Utah and Texas, and it's already too hot there. It's already too hot there. It's ridiculous. You can't be outside in the summertime in those places. The CE5 event that I tried to host in Houston, Texas, we had to change the location because the location we had chosen was on fire. In California, where I lived for 16 years, the temperatures just get hotter and hotter and hotter, just noticeably in that time. And the fires been getting worse and worse and worse and worse just in that period of time. The place where I used to take people hiking, I used to lead a lot of hikes, Malibu Creek State Park. It's also used as film sets. There's a lot of film sets there. I used to hike around that area a lot. And shortly before I left LA, that site burnt down. And I went there afterwards. I snuck in before I was supposed to, before the fires had stopped, because I wanted to see if I could rescue any animals. And they were all dead, lying around on the floor. The only ones that survived were a few deer. So, you know, I have firsthand experience about how terrible these wildfires are. So where is all that CO2 coming from? It's coming from 92% of it is coming from the burning of fossil fuels. These are all graphics. This one is from the US Environmental Protection Agency, but they're the same graphics you can get in all of the scientific sites around the world. So you can split it into different sections. 35% is transportation, 31% generating electricity, 16% industry, 11% commercial, but it's all burning of fossil fuels, or 92% of it is the burning of fossil fuels. The coal and the oil that we dig up and pump up from inside the ground. And this is the pattern of CO2 emission since 1900, the last 100 years. It's accelerated, and it dipped a bit with the pandemic, but now it's back up to where it was. So there's a very clear corresponding, we burn these fossil fuels, we put greenhouse gases into the air, and we have an increase in temperature. But it's slightly more complicated than this, because carbon dioxide isn't the only greenhouse gas that's being emitted. One key gas that's being emitted also is methane. In 2019, 10%, and you know, it takes a year or two for the figures to fully get processed and to come through. But in 2019, 10% of the emissions were methane. Why is that? Why is that significant, and why am I pausing on that? You know, isn't carbon dioxide more important? Well, here's the problem. Methane is about 84 times stronger at warming than carbon dioxide. That means that of the emissions that go up into the atmosphere every year, the worst of those emissions, the most warming, are actually not carbon dioxide. We're producing methane at a much more damaging quantities. Now, there is a difference, because methane over about 20 years, after about 20 years, does dissipate. Carbon dioxide doesn't. What we have with carbon dioxide, that's there, that's staying there. And all of these people that are saying technology will remove it, no, you don't. Technology is not magic. In order to have that kind of technology, you're going to have the equivalent of all of the burning that's been going on, all of those power stations and cars and transport, the equivalent of that doing the unburning at the same rate for 150 years. So yeah, carbon dioxide is a big problem, but methane is even worse. So this is a graph of methane emissions over the last 10,000 years. So similar to carbon dioxide, we're producing this methane. So where have these methane emissions come from? Well, 37% of that is from the fossil fuel industry, because methane gets released also when we're dealing with mining coal and dealing with natural gases like the natural gases that go into our cookers or stoves, various different fossil fuel related sources, 37%. The largest proportion of this methane emission, the most damaging of the greenhouse gases. And I'm going to encourage people to resist the temptation to leave the meeting when I tell you the truth behind this, because it's the meat and the dairy industry. The largest emitter is the meat and dairy industry, contributing 38% of the total emissions. And these are not figures that I've made up. And as predicted, people are leaving the meeting because a lot of people don't want to know truths that will require them to change. Domestic livestock, such as cows and pigs and sheep and goats, produce methane as part of their normal digestive processes. Also, when animal manure is stored or managed in lagoons or holding tanks, methane is produced. When livestock and manure emissions are combined, that is the largest source of CH4, that's methane emissions. And this is non-disputed. And look at how the government agencies word it. Look at how it's listed on there. If you were to look at those words, would you get the impression, oh, maybe if I ate less meat, I could have a significant impact on reducing climate change? No, this is enteric fermentation. Seriously? Enteric fermentation and manure management. So these are truths that the aliens want us to know and understand for a number of different reasons. So a greenhouse gases summary, the two main causes of global warming are the burning of fossil fuels. That does contribute more long-term because of the buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But close behind that is animal agriculture. So what is global warming and how does it work? Like a greenhouse, sunlight radiates down through the atmosphere. Some of it reflects off, the ground absorbs some of it and radiates it back as heat or infrared radiation. And then on its way back up, the greenhouse gases absorb that. It's like the blanket warming up. And then some of that does get radiated out into space, but some of it gets radiated back down into the atmosphere. And the more greenhouse gas there, the more is radiated back into the atmosphere. And the Earth warms up. That's what global warming is. It's very simple. It's very obvious. Since the start of the revolution, as I've said, okay, I've written here about 1.2 degrees C of warming has happened. Now, scientists have said to politicians, we need to try and keep warming under 1.5 degrees C. Politicians, they're the people with the power. And what they're saying is, we're going to try to aim to keep the temperature below 1.5 degrees C, maybe 2 degrees C. But then that's what they say in words. Their policies that they introduce are, by the year 2050, we will have cut down on the global emissions of greenhouse gases by a certain amount. By the year 2050, they're saying, you know, that's something that other people are going to deal with, because if we start dealing with this now, that's going to hurt us politically. We're not going to get in because people are not going to vote for us if we ask them to make these changes. So you can have the right people to vote for to make a change, but unless the people are educated enough to understand that they're going to have to change, then the right people are not going to get voted in. I've talked about that one already. This is the temperature of the planet Earth over the course of the entire human history, over the entire 4.6 billion years of the planet. And the scales change in these different sections. So it's not like a linear scale, but we can see that the Earth started very hot, and this green section, this is like dinosaurs are at the start of this, and that's 10 degrees Celsius hotter. That's 20 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the temperature is now. That's what we're turning the atmosphere back into by burning all of these fossil fuels. Can you imagine the temperatures 20 degrees Fahrenheit hotter all around the planet? It's not, most of the planet is not going to be habitable for human beings. We are heading towards a major collapse and catastrophe. The population of the planet is going to plummet in the next 10 to 20 years. And politicians know this, the industrial military complex know this, but they also know that there's such inertia here that nothing can be done, so why even bother? And we also know that the industrial military complex has the ability to survive this because they've got alien tech. They've almost certainly got off-world colonies already. Doesn't affect them. Their life support system doesn't rely on the Earth, but the Earth is our life support system. So these are big problems. So climate change, what's the difference between global warming and climate change? Global warming is the heating up. The heating up causes our climate to change. The word climate means the weather conditions, including temperature, air pressure, humidity, rainfall, precipitation, sunshine, cloudiness, wind. That's climate. And the climate change is already happening. I've seen this happening over the course of my life. A lot of my possessions were lost when my father's house flooded, like over 10 years ago, flooded in a place that's never flooded before in England, to that extent. And I lost a lot of my possessions. My photos went underwater and they lost their house. I've experienced flooding. I've told you about the wildfires that I've experienced in this area where I am this last winter. The Arctic air just came straight down from the Arctic and killed a ton of people and covered the entire region in ridiculously cold Arctic weather. I had ice covering the inside of my windows for 2 or 3 weeks. And scientists have studied that because the people in this area said, no, it gets cold here sometimes, but not like this, not for this long. Well, climate change has disrupted the polar vortex. And I haven't even gone to look up what exactly that means, but basically scientists have said the disruption of the polar vortex caused by climate change, human-initiated climate change, caused that to happen. So hotter temperatures in most regions of the world, colder temperatures in some. Increased drought, because higher temperatures cause more water to evaporate out of the ground. The ground gets drier, looser, more dust. If you've seen the sci-fi movie Interstellar, that's where that starts, that movie, and they have to leave the planet. Increased rainfall in some areas because warmer area carries more water vapor. More water vapor evaporates into the air, carries more water in the air. So when it does rain, it's raining far stronger and far more. And so obviously that will lead to flooding. Because there's more energy in the air, that's more kinetic energy, you have more power, more strength, more force, more frequent and more severe storms. So those are all changes in climate, and there are a number of things that climate change causes. Ice melting at the north and the south polar regions. The acidification of oceans, because warmer water holds more CO2. Warmer water absorbs more CO2 out of the atmosphere, which has been a good thing for a little while because it's kept it out of the atmosphere, but it's also dissolving all of the shellfish and the corals, those organisms with calcium carbonate shells That's like chalk dissolving in soda or fizzy drinks if you're in England. It's or mild acid. Carbon dioxide, when dissolved in water, forms carbonic acid. So we've got creatures dying. It causes rising sea levels, permanent flooding of coastal regions and low-lying land, low-lying islands. Some countries, some nations being wiped off the planet of the Earth, like Atlantis, because they're being flooded. So increased flooding, wildfires, desertification. Deserts are growing larger, spreading out into regions where they weren't before, and new deserts forming in some areas, in some places where there were actually rivers and lakes and things. Increased erosion of soil, failure of crops, loss of suitable habitats for many species of animals, plants, and fungi. We're seeing migration of species around the planet in a lot of areas, a lot of them pests or parasitic animals. Regional loss of animals, we're seeing a lot of extinction. We've had 5 mass extinctions over the course of the planet's history, and we've already initiated the next mass extinction. I read an article yesterday, scientists are predicting we're already on course for 25% of all species to become extinct based on our present path. We're causing that. This reduction of biodiversity, that's what Sashki, Remiad, and Helmiad were talking to Stacey about, the reduction or the loss of biodiversity. Human illness, injuries, and fatalities directly corresponding to these floods and severe temperatures, also loss of food, loss of potable or drinkable water, loss of homes, spread of diseases. This is going to happen, and this is already happening. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. We're going to have large-scale displacement and migrations of people from country to country and also within countries. Nobody's going to be able to live on the west coast of the US when this gets really bad. Everybody's going to be migrating in to where I am, trying to get into my CE5 community. But we're only going to let in the wise people, the people that didn't cause this to happen. And obviously this causes stresses on international relations and security. I just felt wind inside my room. There's no wind inside my room. Something's here.
Hey, Rupert.
Destabilization of human supply chains and economies. That it's going to be bad. We're going to lose toilet paper and all those things that are the first to go. We're going to lose petrol and gas in gas stations, petrol stations. This is going to cause a huge stress on international relations, and some countries are going to benefit and some are not. And we can expect there to be conflict and war. We can expect countries to take advantage of weakened countries. We can expect fighting. So that's the bad stuff that is going to happen. What can we do? And there's 2 things we can do. One thing we can do is we can, 1, try to stop personally contributing to this. And secondly, we can try to plan for how we're going to deal with these problems, because we are going to experience them. Us and our children and our grandchildren, they're all going to be dealing with this in a really personal way. So what can we do? We can try to do whatever we can to stop burning fossil fuels. Now, we all have to evaluate in our lives what's reasonable and what's not. What are the alternative ways of doing things, or what are they not? For example, if you've got a job that you need in order to keep you alive, and you have to drive your car to get to your job, then I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't drive your car, because that would be unreasonable. But there are some reasonable things that we can do. We can, I know some people here, instead of driving cars where they have the option, they walk. Instead of driving my car to the local food store to pick up, get lots of food, every evening I go on a 20-minute walk and just pick up a little bit at a time. And, you know, just little things like that can help us with our health at the same time, and reduce our impact by burning fossil fuels. Only use electricity when it's necessary. Now, light bulbs and things like that have got very low power and very efficient now, so you can get very good low efficient light bulbs. But if you're not in a room, turn the light off. If you're going to sleep, turn off your computer, turn off your devices, get a power strip so that you can just click the off button and everything turns off. Because a lot of these things like VCRs, video recorders, things like that, they actively stay on using a lot of energy in a standby mode. Computers and so forth. You walk around your house at nighttime. Do you see any lights on? Little lights? If you do, you could turn those off. The biggest contributor to most people's use of electricity is heating or air conditioning. And, you know, if it's going to kill you to not turn the air conditioning on, turn the air conditioning on. But if you're able to remove layers if it's too hot, or put on more layers if it's too warm, do so. That's a reasonable thing. And, you know, I know people that just, the air conditioning is on or the heating is on. There's no in between, you know, just so that they can wear the layers of clothes that they're comfortable with. So I'm not even asking you, I'm just telling you what we could do and letting you make the decisions. We have the option to think about how we use electricity. As a people, we need to switch to using renewable energy resources. We've got the technology, we've got wind, we've got solar, we've had the technology for 100 years, and we just need to do it. We just need to change, and we need to vote for people that will make the change. We need to stop voting for people who are making money out of the fossil fuel industry and the meat and dairy industry. We need to vote for people who are willing to stand up and tell people the truth, no matter how scary it is. We need to end subsidies. Subsidies are when your money that you pay in taxes are given to certain industries so that we can then buy those products cheaper. And who do we give subsidies to? The fossil fuel industry and the meat and dairy industry. Do people really think it takes less money to produce a hamburger than it does to produce an equivalent plant-based meal? That's ridiculous. We need to take the subsidies away from the people that are causing the problem and start giving that extra money to green technology and green products. We need to stop deforestation and plant more trees. We need to stop the reduction in, we need to stop the destruction of wildlife. I'm going to say a bit more about that afterwards. Deforestation is caused mostly by the meat and dairy industry, because in order to produce a certain amount of meat, you need to have a large amount of land to produce the plants to feed the animals. Much larger area of land than to produce enough plants to eat. And that's why the rainforests are burning. And it's a battlefront out there. Activists are killed all the time out there trying to stop this from happening. It's a terrible place. And when we buy meat, we're paying for that to be going on. We need to restore large areas of natural wildlife, do what we can on our property, as limited as that is, to let biodiversity come out. Be nice to nature. We need to learn which products contribute to climate change and stop buying them. That requires us to watch documentaries, to learn, to actively go out and learn, because we're not in school anymore and we don't have teachers saying this is what we're supposed to learn today. We need to go out there and watch the documentaries, like the ones in my CE5 wisdom system. That's why they're there, to help people learn. You can't make good or correct moral judgments without all of the evidence. It's hard for me to say this because I know whenever I do, people turn off to what I'm saying, but consume less meat, less dairy, because they're a big, big, big problem. And incidentally, meat and dairy are the causes of 3 out of 4 of the leading causes of death in the developed world. So you actually would be doing yourself a favor if you did that. The cancer epidemic, there's no cholesterol in plants. You don't get heart attacks and strokes if you're plant-based. And those are the leading 2 causes of death in the country. People are eating themselves to death. Vote accordingly. Vote. When I see people voting for people who are into the fossil fuel industry and promoting that, and against environmental changes, I just don't want to know them. I don't want to know them. These are not the people that are going to be moving forwards into the future with aliens. Educate others about climate change. So here are just a few basic facts. I'm nearly finished. I'm going to talk a little bit more about food because I'm on that subject. If you eat a meat and a dairy meal, you can produce up to 60 times. There was 60 times more greenhouse gases emitted if you eat a plate with meat on it than if you didn't. It's not always exactly 60. It depends what the meat is that you'd be eating, but it's like that sort of figure often. Domestic animals require vast swathes of land, and half of the fertile land on this planet is now farmland. And most of that is to feed the animals that we eat. 70% of the mass of birds on the planet are domesticated birds for eating. Mostly chickens. 70% of the mass of birds now on the planet are chickens and ducks and things that we eat. People have no idea how we have taken over the planet and turned it into tame, domesticated animal sources for us to eat. Humans account for over 1/3 of the weight of mammals on the earth. A further 60% of mammals are those raised for us to eat. So about a third of the mammals on the planet are us. About 2/3 are the mammals that we eat. There's 4% of the mammals on the planet are those in the wild. Just 4% from mice all the way up to whales. We have destroyed the wildlife on this planet. And people don't know it, because when you go into a store and you buy a food product, you don't see all the destruction that went into that. Aliens want us to see and to know, because there are good people out there, and if they know truths like this, then they will do something about it. People ask me, well, what about fish? What about this animal? What about this animal? If you have a plant-based meal, you are going to produce that has a much lower carbon dioxide or greenhouse gas signature than any meal with any meat in it, with any dairy in it. And it's hard because you go out to a store, you buy a tin of vegetable soup. You look at the ingredients, it's got chicken fat in it. Vegetable soup has got chicken fat in it. The industry uses every last bit of the animal. You get pig's feet in candy. It's just ridiculous. Everything somebody buys it for cheap somewhere because of the subsidies and throws it into food. And as well as destroying the planet, it's killing people. And then if you think about from a CE5 perspective, we as, I hope people won't be offended, in some ways lesser beings than aliens, we're reaching out to these more advanced beings saying, please be our friends in peace. And an hour before, we were killing less advanced beings in order to eat them when we don't need to. And it's destroying the planet. How do we look to them? So you can probably tell I'm a bit passionate about all these things. And the reason I'm passionate about them is because I've known these things my whole life. And I've tried to educate people. And I've been trying to see what a politician's going to do to change this course, this direction we're moving in. They don't do anything. This is not going to change. The best we can do is we can change. And the best that we can do is then plan with the aliens. How are we going to get through this crisis? Because this crisis is going to happen and we're going to have to deal with it. And how can we get through to the other side with the help of the aliens? And we have a plan. And phase one of that plan is the CE5 training facility, which I am trying to get set up close to where I live. Phase two is going to be a CE5 wisdom community where we can live together and survive. And I in some ways I feel like I've been guided a little bit by aliens, but more than that, I've been chosen by aliens because this is already who I am, the path that I'm on, and the things that I've learned over my life. I've led survival courses, taking people out into forests to survive. I know this stuff. There's a lot of things in my history which have put me in this position at this time to be doing this. And the aliens know this, and that's why I'm being supported. So if any of you guys want to know how can you support me, then I will encourage you to come to the meetings where I talk about the training facility, because we need to try and purchase a bit of land. We need your support to do that. And that's the next big step that we need to do. If any of you want to figure out other ways that you can support me, I'm sad to say everything comes back to power, in our society is determined by the money you have. If anybody wants to make a donation to what I'm trying to do here, then just simply read the event description and you can see links in there to do that. Now, I've finished the presentation. I am going to open it up now to for questions and for comments. And if anybody wants to chip in and say anything now, you may do so. I am also at the end of this going to let people sort of hang out a little bit and talk to each other and get to know each other if you want to. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything here? Stacey?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. quickly and say that, one, I put it in the chat. I'm not sure if you saw it, but do you remember when I told you that I thought it was a weird message, but that wind would be a sign the Arcturians were with us?
I'm sorry, what would be assigned?
Wind.
Wind would be assigned to us.
Yeah, do you remember when I told you that? It would be a sign that the Arcturians were with us.
I don't, can you remind me? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, you asked in one of the times that we remote viewed together, you asked if like there were any signs that could be given
Oh yeah.
to
Yeah.
know if they were there. And I was like, I'm getting wind, but I don't understand. I was like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But that's really what I'm getting. And then since then I've experienced the wind. And then when you said the wind, you felt the wind, I was like, no way. So
And
that was
that's
funny.
something we experience a lot during CE5 events.
Yeah.
Like we'll lie down and we'll calm our spirits and we'll start to reach out. And then I forget where it was. We heard the wind approaching, like really loud, blowing through the trees, and
That was at
was like,
Monument.
that was Monument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was powerful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had some earlier on behind me, and it's
Yeah.
like I've never had wind inside this room before.
Yeah. No, I thought that was so weird because I had a feeling it was such a small moment that like you may not even like remember or connect the dots. So I wanted to bring that up because I remember. The other thing I wanted to say is I did kind of get a message. Somebody asked in the chat, like, if the Arcturians can give us technology. And the message I kind of got was like, they've tried, we have technology. It's in the wrong hands. And also giving us technology, the people in power really like the military industrial complex. They really are in power, and the fossil fuel industry. And so it really comes down to getting it to the right people in power. That like we have technology, we have actually lots of options, but it's not being used because it's kind of being it just can't happen with people refusing to let go of the fossil fuel,
Yeah.
and all of that. So
Yeah. Oh, why am I?
yeah, I can't see you.
When did that happen?
I don't know.
I don't know how that happened. Sorry, I've been out of view. I don't know what happened there. So yeah, no, everything you're saying is absolutely right. Everything they're saying is absolutely right. We're in complete agreement. Anybody else would like to give any input here? Mary, hello. Yes.
Okay. I had to leave and then come back because I couldn't talk before. But I'm going to start tuning in, from the very beginning, Rupert, when I met you and found this group. Prior to that, I had started being pretty obsessed with thinking about aliens. And that's just kind of how my psychic guidance goes is, sometimes it'll start like that. And then the right people will be put in my path. Anyways, at the beginning, I saw a being and with the name of Qov, spelled with a K. But what I'm going to start doing when I work on people energetically, there are definitely aliens there helping me. And I mean, amazing things happen. But now, having gone through today, I'm going to start doing some very specific guided meditations and communication with them and see if I can get more clarity on things that we can do. And there are some other people that are in my holistic healing circle. I won't name them, but they're also very psychic intuitive. And so I'm going to join with them to try to do that. So I will keep you posted, Rupert. I
appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you for today and everything that you do, truly.
You're very welcome. I think part of the reason I got emotional a little bit earlier when I started this is because finally people are listening to me. There's like 60 people listening to me talking about truths that everybody else just wants to. For my entire life, I've been seen as overreacting, you know, and trying to so many different ways of insulting me in trying to make a difference. And I think just the fact that I'm now able to say what is true, and I've got more than 50 people still listening to me, that's exciting. I'm very sad that in spite of all my efforts, in spite of the efforts of millions of scientists and people all around the planet, we're not going to be able to stop this catastrophe from happening. But I'm very happy that there are going to be pockets of people around the planet who are going to survive this and take humanity into the next evolutionary step. That's what we can do, is to, I keep referring to Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy of books. In Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy, it's more than a trilogy, there was a sequence of books. He envisaged a future with a galactic empire, which is what Star Wars is based on, which this one guy sees it collapsing. He sees it collapsing, and he sees many millennia of barbarism and chaos that's to follow. And so what he does is he stands up and he formulates this plan for setting up a foundation that would seed something better after the collapse. And that's something within my power to do. I can't stop climate change. I can't stop the catastrophic collapse of human civilization. It's going to happen. But I can seed something better moving into the future that the aliens will support, and that can really lead to a better kind of human. So yeah, I'm rambling now. I don't even know how that started. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything? Becky, yes, hello.
Hi, I live in Texas, and it's a huge oil and barbecue state. And boy, you know it when you're here. And it's tough, but I feel like things are changing. Like I feel like we're moving in a good direction, but I don't know, maybe it's just too late. I don't know. But you can see a lot of different things, like in a life. You can go one direction and things look, wow, really good. And you can start making different decisions and start seeing a whole nother world that's so sad, and it's all in the same world. So, I mean, that's me recently. Like, I was walking a pathway and just looked really bad, and I changed something, and I'm seeing things improve. And I just hope that things continue to improve, like with all the offshore wind turbines being built. I'm just hearing a lot of good positive stuff, and I just hope it continues. That's all.
Thank you very much. Hope is good. Hope is valid. And there are lots of good things happening. There are a lot of good people out there. There are a lot of good projects. And hope, it's good to hope. It's also, important that we look at the big picture. And, I mean, there are climate change conferences going on right now around the world, and we can look and see what are countries really saying. And when you look at what countries are really saying, they're really not saying anything of any value at all, large scale. They're just not. Greta Thunberg says it well in one of her recent speeches. She stands up in front of all the politicians of the planet, and she's like, yeah, we're going to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by the year 2050, blah, 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 blah. And just like a kid saying, this is what the truth is, she stands up and says it the way it is. Everybody with power is not doing what needs to be done. It would be wonderful if we could suddenly change. Individuals can change. And when individuals change, the people around those individuals see them making the change. And the more people who see individuals making change, it builds. And that's what this group is. It's a group of light, of love. That the brighter we can be, we attract more and more beings of light, good people into the circle. But we've got to be ready to evaluate what is not helping within us. And I've given you the information. Now it's up to you guys to think about what are you going to be able to do about this. Now, one of the big things obviously is food, and I used to eat a lot of meat, and I went through. I just want to say this so people understand that I understand it's a very, very hard thing to change from being a huge meat eater, meat and dairy, to being a vegan, and it took me years. I understand how hard it is, but if you like the idea of even moving in a direction which is better for the planet and for the animals and for everybody, and better for your CE5 contact, try a couple of days a week. Try just being vegan for a couple of days a week. Go out there and see what vegan foods there are. Nicole recently went through this process. Tell us some of the new foods that you discovered that you like.
My gosh, so many. people think that, being vegan is like choosing to be healthy, and that's not always it is a benefit of it. But like, I found a lot of things that I never realized were like dairy and meat free. And then I found a lot of things that are, but like, I found certain, like the Boysen cheese, that's like the cream cheese. They have a non-dairy version and it's fantastic. And, mushrooms. Yeah. Someone just said mushrooms. Like, I'm adding so many mushrooms, like, and different types of mushrooms. And like, I'm cooking more, and my family's eating the things I'm cooking, which don't have meat and dairy. And in other parts of their lives, they still eat it. But they're becoming healthier. So when you were saying like they do what we do and everyone watches you, it's a snowball process. And I'm telling you, I have a really severe pain condition, and working with the ETs has done a massive amount of healing. But the message I kept getting was, if I want them to help heal me, I have to heal myself as well. And eating meat, and I'm a big fisherwoman. We just got a cottage in my favorite place in the world in Long Point, and I had to stop. I stopped fishing. It just didn't feel right anymore. And then slowly the little things started bothering me, and I just decided to listen. And my body was also telling me stuff. And it was just a quick change for me, but probably a slow process, like, of thinking about it over a long time. But I drink oat milk, which is fantastic. I don't really miss it, to be honest. It feels wonderful.
It's been wonderful watching you go through the process and making these decisions, for yourself, and asking the question, is it still okay to fish and to eat fish, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. It's been wonderful watching you. I'm so happy you got me onto the Beyond Meat sausage patties.
Oh,
They are so delicious.
the sausages are really good too. The hot Italian.
Oh, okay.
Like, they're my favorite. So I had them with like vegan mashed potatoes the other night, and like, I just felt like I was having a normal meal, because we still have that in our brains, of that texture of meat that we remember as kids, right? So to find a few things that you really enjoy that taste a bit like meat to you. Now, there's other things that they try to make taste like meat that I really don't like at all, but the Beyond Meat is fantastic.
Yeah, people don't understand that, meat, or a lot of people don't understand, meat is just made up out of molecules. And those molecules that are in the meat, they originally came from plants. You can cut out the sort of the middleman. And if you are good enough with science, you can figure out what are the molecules in meat and just take them out of the plants and reorganize them into a texture that works for you. There are vegan meat products out there that are just as delicious as all of the meats, and you can get vegan shrimp and fish, and it's so as a meat eater, I don't suffer because there are meat substitutes that taste just as nice. There's a few people waving and with hands up and things. I'm going to first of all go with Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hello. I just wanted to make a comment. I found a very interesting observation. I'm sure probably most, if not everyone in this session witnessed this, but when COVID first came in, like everybody was on a curfew, right? No one could go out unless, they had to, doctor's appointment, groceries, whatever. And, it was kind of a scary time because it was all new to us. But what really blew my mind is to see how quickly things changed. In, like, for instance, in LA, they always have that, haze disappeared. I was in Venice, I'm going to say 2-3 years ago, whatever it was. And, the canals were just really dirty and they had gasoline engines, and I was disappointed when I went there. But somewhere on the news, they showed Venice. You could actually see through the water and the fish and, just all those things that without people driving and emissions, et cetera. But the other thing was, it seems like there was so much more kindness and compassion to your fellow man. People that couldn't get food, other people were bringing it to them. One of the little restaurants on the island here had free soup outside every day. And so seeing all that really gave me hope. But it's interesting because people were forced to do that. They didn't have a choice, right? Where now it's back to choices. And I'm always an optimistic person and was hoping that, hey, maybe this COVID happened for a reason, to show planet Earth and its people what all this stuff is doing. And maybe some, if not most, of people would adopt those new habits that they had to have during that really intense part. So that's just my comment. And I will say that I really agree with like Becky and some of the other people. I mean, I've been on this planet for quite a while, and I will say I'm seeing some changes, and I think it's the younger generations than mine that are realizing this and taking it a little more serious. So I'm hopeful, but you're right. We have to be proactive as well, as far as a plan B, if everything doesn't turn around real soon here. So my 2 cents.
Thank you very much for your input there, Karen. I appreciate that. And it's interesting because if you look at the science of where the viruses that we have in our society come from, they're almost all zootonic. They're almost all, they came from animals. And the pandemic as well, even though that there are people that will believe conspiracy theories. If you look at, it's all our misuse of our of nature and animals around us. And if you look at the conditions that factory animals are kept in, I mean, Becky mentioned about Texas and cattle. When you drive through Texas, you don't see, what the things that I notice, I don't see like vast pastures with nicely spread out cattle. You see them all shoved up really close together in huge, big, walking around on their own waste. They have to be pumped full of antibiotics and other drugs, which is, there's so many problems associated with this. But yeah, we wouldn't have pandemics if we treated nature better. Or at least we'd have maybe 10% of them. That's, yeah. Okay, thank you. Judy.
First, I'd like to thank you for everything. This is just incredible. And what I'd like to know is, do you have an idea, any idea as to where you want to build your training facility?
Yeah, we've got this mapped out in full. If anybody wants to watch the whole presentation, I actually gave one last night. It will be available on in our video club. Our video club is $10 a month to join. It's on Patreon, and the link is in the description. But you can watch the whole thing there. It's going to be in Kansas, close to where I live. This is a good location for it. There's lots of open countryside that's relatively inexpensive, and it's going to be very easy to. There's lots of plant life here. It's going to be a good place for water, and so it's going to start off here in Kansas. That will be phase one, and phase two will then to set up a community. But I think what's going to happen is we've got people all around the world that are going to be watching, are going to be seeing what I'm doing, are going to be liking what I'm doing. And in the same way that we're getting event hosts around the world that I'm training up to host events around the world, we're going to have training facility hosts that are going to be trained up and copy and use what I'm doing as a template to set up other training facilities around the country and around the world. So mine is going to be the first in Kansas City, but I think there will be others that around the world.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mary, is your hand up again?
It is, but you know what? After we're done, I'd like to run an idea by you. Whenever you have time, it can be immediately after. I'll hang around, or it could be later. But I have an idea that corresponds with all of this that you might be interested in.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's try and squeeze that in at the end. Molly, hello.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm new to your group. So nice to meet you. I have really loved your heart and your information and all of this. And I kind of have to go, and I wrote something in the chat, and it sounds a bit like I'm maybe being a conspiracy theorist, but I would like to invite on top of the information you've given, which is so important. And I love the fact that you bring the whole animal thing into it, because I'm a vegetarian and not a vegan yet, haven't made that step, but I'm working on it. But there are some movies out there. What in the world are they spraying? Why in the world are they spraying? Accompanied with like Nick Bagich's information on, angels don't play this harp. You may have heard of all of this. But this is all stuff that is also, I believe, contributing along with all the information that you have given. On top of it, that there's this geoengineering going on. And I've been looking up at our skies for years now and watching them take away the rain, watching them do a whole lot of stuff with the chemtrails and HARP. So I don't know, maybe you may all think I'm a little crazy, but I just want to, open people up to the possibility that there might be more things going on as well.
Thank you for your input there, Molly. I appreciate that. It's one of the really hard things for people is who are not science qualified and trained, and that they're not high-level scientists, is who do you believe? Because you've got so many different people claiming this is true, this is the science of it, this is true, this is the science of it. So, for example, you mentioned HARP and things like that. When you look at those things, it's easy to read an article or watch a YouTube documentary or something, and by the end of it, you can be convinced that something that is completely absurd is actually true. And so it's very hard for people, and it's not just sort of science-based things, it's alien-based things. People can see somebody talking passionately about an experience they've had and their interpretations. Even high-level people like Dr. Greer and James Gilliland will say things, and I promote both of them, and both of them have documentaries that I require people to watch in my CE5 wisdom system. So I'm not like their enemy or anything, but they both say things that I know are incorrect. Who can you trust? Because it's hard. It's very, very hard. And all I can say is, in my sessions that I give, I have thinking sessions where I teach how do we cut through all of this misinformation and disinformation to determine what's true, because we have to go back to basics. How do you prove anything? And it's very, very fundamental stuff about, well, what is logic? How can you know something? How can you acquire knowledge? And when aliens look at the full range of nonsensical beliefs that so many people have on this planet, it's like, maybe that's why they're hairless, They've pulled all their hair out. That's a new theory. You've got to believe it. No. They look at humanity and think, well, they don't even know how to think. So what you've brought up, Molly, is really important. How do we know the truth? The only way that because I tell people, I don't want you to believe me. I want you to listen to what I say and evaluate it logically. And what I tried to do today was I presented information that is indisputable science. There's no scientist, no respectable scientist on the planet that's going to look at anything I said there and dispute it, because it's fact, and it's internationally, globally, scientifically fact. But things like the things you were talking about, like chemtrails and HARP, yes, there are things going on that we don't know about, but I don't buy I don't see any truth. I don't see any logical, reliable evidence in any of those things. And I've researched them, and those are things that I know we don't need to worry about, but I would need to give full presentations to you in order for you to know that. So what I try to do is, focus on the things that we can know, and everything I've talked about today, we can definitely know. Nancy, hello.
Hi, Rupert. Thank you so much for today's session. It was very informative. And I just want to let you know, when I was doing the meditation, and I showed him a little box that I've been collecting, and my whole intake of food has changed so much. I don't do any dairy, and I've been eating a lot of fruits, and I saved the seeds. And they told me they just kind of smiled at me, saying, continue to collect the seeds and just maybe plant them somewhere, So I'm just collecting the seeds. On a comical note, I wanted to end with that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, Rupert.
Hello.
Hi. I have a couple of few comments that I've been reserving when all different subjects came up. But first of all, thank you so much for guiding us and giving this opportunity for us to join our friends from the Arcturian planet. In terms of making changes, every one of us can do little steps one at a time. I come from a meat eater country, Chile, Argentina, big industry. In Argentina is the main industry, cattle. And then coming to Canada, you kind of change many things. It's a different world. And adjusting, and little by little, I'm starting to make changes myself. And then eventually marry Peter, and then he is also a meat lover, right? And little by little, my cooking has been changing. My shopping is different. And for many reasons, but it's still every once in a while, he enjoys what I'm doing right now, but he's every once in a while just a joke. He said, "Where's the beef?" Because he said, and we laugh, but we're making changes. But the thing is, like, how do we change the cultural make of a country like Argentina? You go there, it's just like there is no meal without meat, okay? And on the other hand, just following up on what Nancy said, I do have a garden, a vegetable garden every summer, and I love it, right? And I try to get as much as organic food that I grow. And I've been collecting seeds, like, when I squeeze a lemon, instead of dumping it, I just collect seeds. I collect seeds of all kinds, fruit that I bought beautiful peaches in Ontario. I'm collecting it. I have a section in my basement that is all seeds, because I'm preparing for the time when I can go out in a drive now in the fall and just toss these seeds and then let them be, Earth will take care of it. So that's
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't take much. Instead of going into the compost, just I'm collecting them. I'm collecting all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think, I think there's something very special about being in tune with nature and growing things. And I think there's something spiritual about, connecting with our surroundings and knowing about plants and our environment. I tried a project the last few days where I've been harvesting these large acorns from a bur oak tree close to here, and I've been trying different methods of cooking them. The first method hasn't worked great, but I have produced sort of a brown mushy stuff that is edible. But I'm working on that. I bought a book about all of the local plants that Native American Indians used to eat and cultivate and use for food and for medicinal purposes. I think learning about all of that sort of stuff is fun, and it's valuable. And I think in the future it's going to be a lot more valuable also. So yeah, that's great. The two of you are, getting into collecting seeds and doing things with plants. So I think what I'm going to do is we've had 2 hours here. I think I'm going to end this meeting soon. We still got a lot of people with us. I think because I've got other events that I need to plan for, I think I'll sort of skip our usual everybody sort of talking about themselves at the end of today's session. I am going to host a session at some stage in the future, possibly next weekend. What can you do to help? Just in general, the planet, to help me, to help my group, to help aliens. What can we now do to help? I guess in some ways it acts as a follow-on event to this event, because I know I've now given people a lot to think about, a lot of information, and I've told you what you can do to some extent on an individual basis, but I just want to make that a bit more formal. If any of you are interested in helping me to set up the CE5 training center, because I need financial backing. I need help with that. It's big, and I've not gone the money route in life, so I'm going to need people to help me and support me with that. I'm receiving signals that we're still not alone. The aliens are still here with us, so that's awesome. So that event will probably be next weekend. How can you help? I am so grateful to all of you for being here, for letting me present this subject to you. And I think I will just say goodbye now, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. And if who is it? Mary wants to stay, then I'll talk to her now. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.